Hello and welcome back to Kitchen TV. My name is Chef Laura Steck and I'm broadcasting from Portola Valley, California. Glad to have you back today for the third series, the third part of our series, De-Stress Fest, an opportunity just to take a load off and figure out how to get around our kitchen with a little more flavor and a little less agitation. So right now we're going to do Eat Well, Stress Less, focusing on foods that actually help us liven our mood and reduce our stress level. We're going to be making a one-pot spring salmon with herb couscous. And we're going to be looking at some of the foods that contribute ingredients and compounds that help us to lower our stress levels. And that includes magnesium, omega-3, fiber, and serotonin. So today's dish focuses on salmon. It's definitely giving us some of that omega-3 good fatty acids that we need to raise our mood and lower our stress level. Also good with the reduction of inflammation. We're going to be using some seeds and nuts. Also salmon, good for serotonin booster and another mood elevating compound that we can incorporate into our diet. We're looking at fiber, and we're bringing in some of the seasonal vegetables of the day to remind us that when we eat, not only is it important to eat for us, but we're eating for the microbiome, those millions of bacteria that live in us and on us. And the majority of the microbiome in our body actually live in our gut. So fiber is important, not just to make us regular, but to feed the microbiome, because microbiome eats the plant fibers that we do not. And what they say is if we don't get enough fiber in our diet, the microbiome in our stomach will start eating the carbohydrate-rich lining of your small intestine. So Crohn's, colitis, these diseases sound like things you either have or you don't want to get. We want to make sure that we're feeding ourselves with enough fiber, plant fibers, that feed that microbiome. And what studies are starting to show is that microbiome actually may be a very large component to emotional health. So don't forget, when you're thinking about food in the kitchen, you don't want to be eating too much sugar. You don't want to be eating too much caffeine. Definitely caffeine after noon is not suggested because caffeine stays in people's bodies 4 hours, 6 hours, even some people up to 8 hours. You don't want to be eating too little plants, again, for the fiber, not too much alcohol, and we want to remember that food is our wealth and our health. And so let's begin today with our fish dish. The reason why I chose this dish is because it is one of those dishes you can just make immediately when you get home. It's a one-pot dish, and because of that, it's just it's a fast-cooking dish, and it also includes a little bit of we'll take the overhead shot, some Israeli couscous. Now, Israeli couscous is a pasta, so it is made of flour, but I like it because in these days of keto and less carbos, I find that I can get my pasta kick, but with less actual ingestion of pasta. And so Israeli couscous is a broad, big couscous, unlike just the smaller couscouses, so it is more pasta-like. We're also going to start off today with some fennel in season for the springtime. And the first thing we're going to look at is our spring onion. All right, so spring onions are onions that are just young onions. They haven't grown all the way. If this onion was older, it would have a big bulb, and we would cut this off and sell it to you as an onion bulb. But in the spring, we serve these. We harvest these earlier because the flavor is lighter. So it is not such a strong and cutting onion flavor, but one that you would expect with spring, just a lighter flavor, less biting. And for the spring onion, you really don't want to use the whole onion. I know in these days of using food waste, we want to be using more of the plant. This is perfect for stock. So if you have not looked at our stock and bone broth class, this would be what you would throw in your bone broth. But we wouldn't want to eat it because it's not that tasty, actually. And then I'll just cut off the bottom like I would with an onion. And then here, depending on what it is, you can look at it. If it looks kind of strong and clean, you don't have to do this step. But if the outside of it just looks like it might have seen a better day, you can always just take a little line and peel that off. And then you're left with the onion. And here I'll slice it. We'll just put it in like this. A little bit of that, and then line those juliennes up. And slice that onion well. Now, if I want to move this onion from my cutting board to my saute pan or to my bowl, do I move my onion with the knife pointed down like this? Or do I move my onion with the knife, with the back of the knife, like this? Is it like this or like this? How do I move things around my cutting board? Back of the knife. You want the back of the knife when you move things around your cutting board. Why? So you don't dull your knife, you don't cut your cutting board. All right, let me clean this guy up. One of my teachers used to say that vegetables like their space on the cutting board. So you want to keep your cutting board clean like you keep your desk clean and your house clean. And I'd say like keep your car clean, but I can't say that. All right. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my salmon. I actually have a pound of salmon here. This is about 3/4 of a pound of salmon. It still has the skin on. And let me show you a good way to do the salmon, to take skin off. So we'll take the stove shot, very good. I have a non-stick skillet here. I usually cook with a stick skillet because I like things to stick. But in this case, I don't want them to stick. All I want to do is take off the skin. So I cut the salmon into small pieces because that's how I prefer it. Certainly you could use just a whole piece of salmon. And with that hot pan, we're going to let it get a little hotter. And then it cooks about 30 seconds. And what we can do after it finishes is we'll just be able to peel that skin off. So while that's going on, we'll just let that go a little longer, and I'll introduce a couple of the other things that we're going to be using. We're going to be using some pesto onto the salmon. We're going to be using today some pistachios or some of those good omega-3 and serotonin creating nuts. We're going to have some capers in our pasta, one dish pasta. We're also going to be using fennel. And for fennel, same kind of idea, where this top part isn't that great to eat, but the fronds are beautiful for garnish, and a little bit makes great in stock. All right, we'll take that shot back at the stove now, because the idea is not to cook the fish, right? You just want to basically pick it up, and then are we on the stove? Good. And then you'll see I can pull that skin straight off, right? So let's do that again. Just kind of pick all those up. Turn off the pan. And then, are we still on the stove? Yeah, so I can just either take the back of the spatula and lift it straight up. All right. So it really only takes about 30 seconds. Don't let it cook too long. You don't want to cook the fish. You want to, this got a little cooked, this did not. So that's great. Okay. And I'll take the overhead shot, Ray. All right, so whether you have a whole piece of fish or small pieces like I prefer to eat. I don't eat a lot of meat. I don't eat a lot of fish. And when I do, I like my pieces small. Call me strange. We'll just put a little salt, a little pepper. And then I'm going to take about a tablespoon of pesto. And this, of course, is just store-bought pesto, but you are more than welcome to make your own. But if we're looking to reduce the amount of stress, then the store-bought pesto is fantastic. Not all pestos are created equal. So make sure you find a pesto that you like, not that I like. but that you like. You know, our taste buds, our tongues are like fingerprints. What I like, you may not like. What you like, I may not like. And that's because our tongues are completely individual to us. So never let anybody tell you that this wine is good and that wine is bad, because you may have a very different experience tasting it than they do. And when you look for people when you ask people what do they like, it really doesn't matter what I like. It matters what you like. All right, overhead shot. We're going to do our fennel now. And fennel, most often you're going to take the bottom off of it because you've got something hard here. I wouldn't even put that in a stock. But any of these additional pieces that just look a little too brown to use, you know, you might, I mean, if they're really brown, you wouldn't want to put them in the stock. But, you know, make sure you wash your fennel and then take off anything that may look a little too brown. The real brown stuff, throw away. The semi-brown stuff you can use in a stock. So I'm just going to cut this fennel into quarters, or not quarters. I'll make it a little smaller just so that it cooks on time. Fennel is great shaved. It's in season in the springtime. Fantastic, not cooked, but also nice cooked. All right, we'll take the stove shot. Now I'm going to use some extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to use some extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil with a smoke point of 375 to 425 is fine to saute with. It's those really nice, expensive olive oils with the dark green colors, the ones that have more of the antioxidants and phytochemicals in them that we don't want to saute with. Basically, you're sauteing both your health and flavor out of your expensive olive oils. But a regular, $8 bottle of olive oil is absolutely fine to saute with because, again, it has that 375 to 425 smoke point. Don't, with extra virgin, you don't want to sear, you don't want to, fry in it, but you can absolutely saute in it. And I'm going to add my onions, my spring onions, and get those guys going. And also I'm going to add in some of my fennel. Now I want to tell you that vegetables have secrets. Vegetables have secrets. And the secret of vegetables is vegetables are sweet. And you see vegetables are sweet, an onion is not sweet. But if I saute this onion as I'm doing, what happens to it? It becomes sweet. And why is that? Why do onions become sweet? Well, onions are made of carbohydrates, and carbohydrates, when carbohydrates come to a certain temperature, they brown. That temperature is 330 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. 330 Fahrenheit or higher, caramelization occurs, the sweetness of vegetables. All vegetables are carbohydrates. All vegetables can caramelize if it reaches 330. So, are you smarter than a fifth grader? What temperature does water boil at? 212 Fahrenheit, 100 Celsius. But secrets come out at 330. So 330, 212, right? If I boiled and steamed all my vegetables, my temperature wouldn't get hot enough to bring out those secrets. What's the secret? Vegetables are sweet. What temperature does it take? 330 Fahrenheit, 166-ish Celsius. Where do I get that in the kitchen? Oven, broiler, grill, saute pan. Let's go back to the saute. So the secrets are coming out, and what that forms is I'll take the stove shot, please. What that means is that I am creating caramelization in here, but I'm also starting to create And it's just starting to form some brown stuff on the bottom of the pan. Just starting to create brown stuff on the bottom of the pan. And that brown stuff has a name. It's called fond, F-O-N-D, fond. It is dehydrated gold or the culinary essence. You do not want to take the stuff out of your pan and then throw that brown stuff all down the drain. We want to do the process of deglaze after we caramelize. So step number one to bring more flavor into your dish is caramelize your vegetables. Step number two is deglaze your pan. And as this caramelization occurs, and we're starting to see some here, we want to pick that back up again and put it in the dish. Now we can do that with a lot of different things. We can use stock, we can use wine, but have you know you can deglaze with any liquid. Apple juice. Are you drinking a beer? Deglaze with beer. Are you drinking a vodka soda? You know, you can, you know, do you like the juice and olives and you don't do anything with it besides maybe a dirty martini? Deglaze with olive juice. You can deglaze with anything, but you don't want to add so much that all of a sudden your pot is boiling, because what will happen to your temperature? It'll go down to the boiling point of water and you'll stand around and wait until it all boils off. Now I'm going to deglaze today with some wine, and I'm going to have to do it I'm going to move it away from the camera so we don't knock the camera out. But with that, I'll take the stove shot Ray, and I want to use a flat wooden spoon. I do not want to use a round wooden spoon, right? I don't want to use a round wooden spoon. I want to use a flat wooden spoon. Why doesn't she want to use me? Well, because you're around. Well, what's the difference does that make? With a flat spoon, you get more surface area. I've got good fond, as you can see on the bottom, and now just enough wine. Let that steam go off in a different direction to pick it all up. Now you can do that process again, but I'm going to, we're going to move on to the couscous now. But the longer you let that process happen, the more fond you will get, the more flavor you will have. All right, next step is to toast our couscous. Now, toast a grain or a couscous in a dry skillet. And you say, why would you do this step, Laura? Why would you want to toast a grain? Well, why would you toast toast, right? The grain is carbohydrate. When carbohydrates reach 330 degrees, what do? They brown and sweeten. So just like your toast, if you toast a raw grain before you cook it, or I toast couscous before I cook it, I'm going to add to the quality and the flavor. And so remember, when we're cooking, flavor is key. Healthy food, less healthy food, flavor is key. And we want to get it everywhere we can. And learning these steps will give us much richer flavor. All right, so basically what you're going to do is when you start smelling the flour toasting, when you start certainly seeing the brown on the couscous, you can move on to the next step. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit while I combined our next ingredients. Ray, why don't you give me the full shot? All right, so what we're going to do with this salmon is we will add some capers, and I'll take the overhead shot actually. So to a pound of salmon and a cup of couscous, I'm adding a cup and a half of stock. I'm adding caper berries, or pickled berries is what they are. Salty flavor that were drained. And I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of pesto to my mix. And then we'll mix that up. Why don't I move my pan? which now has a lot of really nice fond, and I could deglaze it, and I'm going to actually by simply adding my stock. Woo! Hopefully I'm not going to shoot that camera out, and I can pick up any of that fond, because that fond is flavor, remember, with a flat wooden spoon. And if you like these smiley spoons, you can get them on Amazon. I'm going to throw in a little bit of garlic into the pot, and I'm going to nestle my salmon right in there. Oh, and I'm going to surround it with my vegetables. And of course, any vegetable is good, right? I had some spring garlic, green garlic actually, on the recipe, but I couldn't find it yet in the market. So we're taping this in spring, and spring garlic, green onions, or spring onions and green garlic are all good. And then we'll just add a little bit of lemon on top of that. Certainly some salt, some pepper, or not, as you choose. And then we'll put that on the stove. We'll take the stove shot. We're going to reduce our temperature to we're going to bring that up. Let's bring it up first. And once it comes up to a boil, then we're going to just cover it, and we'll let that do it in the back. And then it'll cook for about 12 minutes to 15 minutes. And by the wonder of the culinary world, we'll take the overhead shot as well. Cover it up, and after it comes up, and then we cook it for about 12 minutes, you have a beautiful result of some delicious couscous with cooked salmon. And then we can just do a little garnish either on the plate or in the pan with fennel fronds. If you like the look of fennel, but you don't necessarily like the taste as much, dill is another good example. So I've got some dill here, which will be lovely. And then we'll sprinkle with a little bit of those serotonin-boosting, omega-3 filled pistachios to serve you a delicious plate of salmon and fennel and nuts and couscous. So thank you so much for coming to our series, De-Stress Fest. If I can do it in 20 minutes, you can do it in 30. Fast dishes, and hopefully for a relaxing time in the kitchen. My salmon is now up to boil, so I want to turn that temperature down so that it will cook, again, low and slow, like we were talking about in the crock-pot class. And thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Remember, some of the best foods for our own health are the best foods for the health of the animals and the health of the planet. So let's change the world with great tasting food. Together we can make a great meal and a great difference. Thanks so much.